Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Beautiful, lovely, full room. Love this. Okay, official. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for attending tonight's ArtNow 2023 Focus Awards, where we'll be honoring Indigenous artist and filmmaker Sterlin Harjo. My name is Marie Casimir, and I'm the curator of public programs and performance here at Oklahoma Contemporary. Bear with me, I have bios to get through. So, a little bit about tonight's guest of honor. Born in Holdenville, Oklahoma, and now based in Tulsa, Sterlin Harjo of Seminole and Muskogee tribal affiliation personifies the meaning and importance of local artists. While growing up, Sterlin couldn't envision a future in directing, and it wasn't until college he realized the possibilities of becoming a filmmaker. Sterlin knew that there was a gap to fill in the lens of Hollywood storytelling, specifically accurate Indigenous representation. And by homing in on his Native community, their stories, voices, and experiences, the filmmaker ushered in narratives by the Indigenous community for the Indigenous community with a cultural principle at the center: love. Among Sterlin's impressive list of film accomplishments, such as award-winning series Reservation Dogs, shout out to that. Yeah. Homegrown, super proud, are Oklahoma-centered filmographies, including the documentary Love and Fury, Four Sheets to the Wind, Three Little Boys, Barking Water, This May Be the Last Time, and Mekko. The filmmaker is also a founding member of the Native sketch comedy troupe, the 1491s. Hilarious, right? Joining Sterlin for tonight's artist talk is guest curator of ArtNow, Lindsay Avieje. Lindsay is also a Tulsa-based creative who is currently director at the Gardner Gallery of Art at Oklahoma State University. Her recent curatorial projects include Sol Lewitt at the Reykjavik Art Museum, and Sol Lewitt Lines, Forms, Volumes at Gallery Alfonso Artiaco in Naples. Avieje is editor of the Sol Lewitt wall drawings catalog, Raisonné, and co-creator of the Sol Lewitt mobile app made in collaboration with the Lewitt Estate and Microsoft. She was contributing author to Locating Lewitt Between Mind and Body. Most recently, Lindsay co-curated Modos de Ver, Ways of Seeing, at OSU, a group exhibition highlighting international contemporary Latin American artists. Okay, so moving on. Thank you for bearing with me. Tonight's program is generously sponsored by the Oklahoma City Film and Creative Industries Office and Oklahoma Film and Music Office, with additional support from the Kirkpatrick Family Fund, Allied Arts, Oklahoma Arts Council, National Endowment for the Arts, Adventure Road, and Art Desk. So thank you to our sponsors. Thank you. Okay. And finally, I'd like to offer a land acknowledgement with special thanks to the First Americans Museum for their guidance and contribution in preparing the statement. We honor the Indigenous people who inhabited these lands before the United States was established, including the Apache, the Caddo, the Tonkawa, and Wichita. We also honor those tribes who have a historic relationship to this region, including the Comanche, the Kiowa, the Osage, the Kapwa. Today, 39 distinct tribal nations reside in Oklahoma. Oklahoma Contemporary gratefully acknowledges each for their continued leadership in caring for and respecting the land upon which we work and create. And finally, I can step out. Please help me welcome Sterlin and Lindsay to the stage. Cue.
Act normal.
Y'all wouldn't have seen a stolen food truck, would you?
No.
Oh. Someone stole the truck. Broad daylight.
Put your seatbelt on.
Seatbelt.
People safety.
We're stealing a f***ing chip
I do
truck.
not give a shit, man. Put your seatbelt on. We're
Jesus.
not going.
Let's go.
Apparently it was full of chips. I've never seen anything like that.
You're good thieves. Best in town. Oh.
Thank you. It is a small town.
Tell your friends.
I don't have any.
Go get some then.
Okay. We could be in California as soon as 2 months.
California, here we come.
You and your thuggy ass friends. What are you gonna fight for? Nah, I just with you.
What? Oh, you guys watching this? It's gonna be like a month.
What kind of gang was both red and blue?
Indian Mafia couldn't make up their minds if they want to be Bloods or Crips more. Maybe they're Blips, or maybe they're Cruds. Hey.
It's easy to be bad.
Fight the man.
It's hard to be a warrior with dignity.
We making it drop when the Glock go pop, pop, pop. Bullets can't be stopped. I let them in chop when the Glock go pop, pop, pop. You better believe we shutting down shop when the Glock go pop, pop, pop.
Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, Sterlin.
We've known each other since OU. We were
20 years.
college
20
friends.
years. So, hi.
Not that long ago.
Reservation Dogs, yes. Congratulations, of course.
Thank you.
So it's so wonderful to be here with you this evening. Obviously, we've known each other for a very long time, and I don't think when we met all those years ago at OU that we would imagine we'd be sitting up here having a conversation
Not at all.
about art and creativity in Oklahoma, right? And well, we're here, and there's a lot to talk about, right? So I have a lot of things I want to talk about, and we'll get back to Reservation Dogs here in a minute. But first, I want to say thank you, Sterlin, for your contribution to The Soul is a Wanderer. I know that that's the first time you've worked in that, specifically creating something for an art exhibition.
Right.
I may have coerced him a little bit, but so anyway, the show's closing in a matter of days, and I know many of you have seen it. And I want to thank the museum and the staff for their boundless amount of support and belief in the art that is on display, and all of you for joining us today. To join us in honoring Sterlin with the ArtNow Award for his many contributions to the arts in Oklahoma. So The Soul is a Wonder is an iteration of Oklahoma Contemporary's ArtNow exhibition series meant to take a pulse on contemporary art being created in Oklahoma. You and I obviously have known each other for a long time, so the kind of origin story of the exhibition started when I moved back to Oklahoma, and Sterlin and I met to have a conversation about kind of art in Oklahoma, what was going on. And essentially, through some of those preliminary conversations, I came to the poem by Joy Harjo that became kind of the premise for the exhibition.
I also always tell her to stay. I was like, just stay. It's cool here. Just stay. Don't go back to New York.
And I was like, I'll stay if you're in my art show.
And I was like, I'll do an art film, but I got to learn how to do it. Which is just like, don't edit. Don't entertain. It's pretty much like...
Put some noise over it.
Some noise, make sure you can't hear it. And
exactly.
Gold.
Exactly. So hopefully a lot of you have had a chance to see the exhibition. So Sterlin's video work is an intimate look at Joy walking on her property, and is also a recording kind of overlaid of Joy reading her poem, Map to the Next World. So Sterlin, so you've made indie films, documentaries, now very high production.
I can't look at her as she talks to me because I know her too well.
Yeah, we've sat on many couches together, drinking wine. So anyway, what was it like for you kind of creating this work for this type of setting?
This work?
Yes.
The
piece in the exhibition. Yeah.
I mean, it was what I just said. Like, no, I mean, it's a different thing, like artists, like art museum people want to come and.
What is the quote that you recently gave and it was published?
What did I say?
You said, art museums are where Indians go to die.
Yeah.
That was
It's true.
just published in a national publication for the review of the show.
It's true. It's like, yeah, you want to just like leave them thinking and like leave them like sort of like almost in a coma, mesmerized, and like they got to think about it for like 3 days and be like, what was he trying to say? And then they come up with the idea. And then that's what they stick with, and none of them are right. But no, it was cool. I mean, it was like trying to. I'm just like an intimate filmmaker, though. I feel like art museum, art films are less intimate, and they're cool, and they have their place. I love Sky's work. There's so many like video artists that I really like their work. But if it's me, like for instance, like I used to paint. I started out at OU as a painting major, and I couldn't paint landscapes. I couldn't paint anything like that. I had to paint people. I'm interested in people, and I'm interested in like knowing them really well. And so when I make a film, I want to like explore like human emotion and like who they are, and there's an intimacy that goes into that, you know, like when you watch Reservation Dogs, there's an intimacy that goes into that. I'm letting you into a world that you didn't know about. You're getting to know these people at an intimate level. Like contemporary filmmaking is not necessarily what you're doing, you know. You're expressing something. And so, but I found a loophole, which is like this whole project was based on Joy Harjo's poem. And I know her, she's a friend of mine. And it was my way to sort of tell an intimate story with her to help support this bigger project. And I just hung out with Joy at her house and followed her for a few hours on her property and just like filmed her doing what she does. And then I filmed her reading the poem. And it was really great and beautiful. And then Penny Hill and the band Labras, who's Oklahoma City based, she also plays bass for Broncho. I used some of her music for it. And yeah, felt really good. And FYI, we were going to talk about this too much because it's not confirmed, but I'm executive producer on a documentary about Joy Harjo that's hopefully shooting this coming year. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I knew that as well, and I thought this is a great kind of like almost like precursor to that, and we're really happy to have it in the show. And for us, like having Joy's actual voice be a part of the exhibition rather than kind of reading the text on the wall was really important to us. And obviously the location of the work is purposeful in that you enter and you hear her voice, and you leave and you hear her voice and you see her. So we really appreciate that. And so thinking of the poem itself, which was the inspiration for the exhibition, when I think about your work, Sterlin, and your life and career, the last line of the poem really kind of, I don't know, just to me kind of describes you, which is crucial to finding the way is this: there is no beginning or end, you must make your own map. And so, watching you accomplish what you have over the years, you've forged a unique path for yourself that is unabashedly yours. And I think that's very interesting for people aspiring to do and make things, especially in Oklahoma. So I know a lot of your personal life is in everything that you do. Reservation Dogs, I know, is a lot of you growing up here. And I think since we're in Oklahoma, we're talking about Oklahoma, can you tell me a little bit about growing up in Holdenville, like what it was like?
Yeah, I mean, my whole family's on that second row. I kicked them off the front row into the second row. But it's like my mom, my dad, my brother, my cousins, and like all of them they could tell you, like you watch the show and you can pick apart like what of our life is in there, and like we just like, I mean, every episode is like my life and things that we experienced and things that we went through, starting with like just being kids that had nothing to do. You know, like we walked all over the town of Holdenville, Oklahoma. You know, and then like, I mean, like my dad, like, you know, we had like a friend that had a cable company or that worked at a cable company. What was his name? Humpsy, great name. And he hooked us up with like a cable box. And so at first we had like, you know, and it was around this time that like movies like Stand By Me and The Lost Boys and Howard the Duck and like all these movies were out. And we were watching these movies like crazy. And like, I don't know, they definitely like formed who I was. And like, I remember one of the first things that I watched was like the making of the Thriller. And that was the first time I realized people made these things. Like it was like the behind the scenes, the first behind the scenes I'd ever seen. But, you know, and then like all of my family and our grandma, she was like, we would go to the country to stay at her house. And, you know, that's where we heard about the Deer Lady, you know, like that's where the Deer Lady existed. And that's where the little people were, and like that's where all the mythology was, and like we grew up with that, and we would scare ourselves. And then every Friday, I mean, like all of my cousins here, every Friday night we would go to my grandma's. My grandma would pick us up from our houses. We would go to the Holdenville movie rentals, and we would rent a scary movie. We would just judge it from the cover. And it was like whatever awful cover it was, we would rent that, or maybe two. We would get in our grandma's car and we would drive to Spalding, Oklahoma, where she lived. And whenever you got to her place, you cross, there's like two sets of cattle guards that you have to cross. And the first set of cattle guards, you know, you rattle over them. And then you're on this like super long, winding driveway to her house. And you know, when you're kids, you just think she owns all that land because you could run around and it was just hers. And that was like grandma's house, you know. And she would drive us, we would rent the scary movie, we would drive to her house, and she would always, after we crossed the first cattle guard, act like she broke down. And like, and like she would be pumping the gas and like we'd all be scared. Even though it happened every time, we'd still be scared. And she'd be like, do you hear the, do you hear that? Do you hear that? You know, and like she'd be pumping the gas. And then it would start, and then we would drive on to grandma's house. And then we'd start, you know, she would always make like grilled cheese sandwiches with commodity cheese, which was like the best. It's just like the thickest grilled cheese sandwich ever. And so she would do that. We would have candy and pop, and we would watch the scary movie. And then like halfway through the scary movie, halfway through the scary movie, we would hear like something scratching the window, or like, or like a door, or like a door knocking. And it was always, and like we would look, and it was always grandma in like a, and she would take her teeth out, and she would put a pantyhose over her head, and so her face was like smushed with like no teeth, and she would wear like a black hat and like a black dress and make crazy noises, and we would freak out. And she had the keys, so she would let herself in and then chase us like all over the house. And that was like every Friday night for a long time. And you know, so like movies were always there, I think. There was always things surrounded. We had the Holdenville the Holdenville movie theater, which was just like one screen, and I remember seeing like lots of movies there for the first time. Like I think when Star Wars started coming back out, maybe when like Return of the Jedi came out or something, they started showing them again. I remember seeing those there, and they closed it. It's been closed for a long time. It was just like a tin shed that had theater seats in it, and you could watch a movie. And the owner also was Santa Claus for the town every year. And there was like, and it closed down. It became a church for a while. And now I think it's just storage. But we would go there every Friday night, and then we would cross the street to the Pizza Hut the highway. We wouldn't in the street. We'd almost get hit by cars crossing the highway to the Pizza Hut, and we would hang out there. And that was like Friday night too. That was when we were older. But like everything in Reservation Dogs, literally everything. Like the episode where Mabel, the grandma's dying, based on our grandma dying, the same grandma that scared us, in the same house that she scared us, like all of that is based on everything from my life. And it was just like the Reservation Dogs and these kids were like the perfect vehicle to tell all the stories that I wanted to tell. And it was the way to tell that story. I mean, like my whole life, all of our older family, they're the best storytellers. And I was always like, I wish they would write this down. Like, I wish they would have written these stories down. Like, why aren't you writing these down? And then at a certain point, I realized like, I'm the only one that can, like, it's up to me to like write them down. But then I didn't know how to write them down. Like, I was like, what do I do? Write a book? Like, I don't know. And then Reservation Dogs was like a way to put all of those stories into something and write them down and let them exist and keep existing. So, yeah.
That's great. So I know your family's here now. Is there anything that's off limits? Have you ever pissed off any cousins? Have you gone too far yet? I don't
think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Mid-career,
my mom will be like, they say fuck a lot or whatever, like. But then she's also in it, so like she's, it doesn't. But like I don't think so. Like for the most part, I forget. Like there was something you said one time. Like there was too much of something, but I don't remember what it was. I was like, it'll be fine.
So I've kind of lost track of the number of awards and accolades Reservation Dogs has received, but I wanted to share a few abbreviated reviews just to kind of, celebrate what you've done. So from Rolling Stone, who ranked Res Dog as the #1 TV series in 2023. Yes. There's never been a show quite like Reservation Dogs. Let us hope there will be more. There will be ones, to come. I'll just flub that. It could be the funniest thing on television one week and the most sob-inducing the next. I know that happened to me quite a bit. Reservation Dogs was magic of the highest caliber. The Guardian described Res Dogs as the most heartbreaking, life-affirming TV you'll ever see. I mean, that's pretty big. And Hollywood Reporter, which I think also was the #1 for 2023.
All of them were #1.
All of them, doesn't matter. TV's most...
Besides the Golden Globes.
Forget him. Hollywood Reporter says the TV's most soulful half hour about the value of community and intergenerational connection. Reservation Dogs became a show with no boundaries and no limitations. So how does that all sit with you now? I mean, I know that these have just come out at the end of the year. The TV show is wrapped. Like, how are you feeling right now? Have you been able to kind of like soak it in?
I don't ever soak it in, and I don't ever pay attention to it.
I don't
feel. I think that they're like I'm really good at like accepting that, giving them like a thumbs up, and then moving on. Like I don't think about it too much, and I think if I thought about it too much, it would affect everything else that I do. And so I have to remind myself to enjoy it, actually. Like I have to like make myself go, wow, this is great, right? And then half the time I do that, I feel fake because it's not genuine because I'm just like, yeah, cool, but like, I'm like, wow, this is really great. But like most of the time I don't, I just can't think about it too much, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think probably that kind of tension there, it's like you have to put your energy into the next project, so you're kind of like...
Right, and like I'm from Holdenville, Oklahoma. What, 5,000 people? Like, I'll always feel like that. I will always feel like a kid from there that like doesn't deserve to be here on this stage. Like I always feel like that, and I think that that is what makes me keep working. I don't want to feel like I deserve to be here. Like I've seen people. I'm going to be rubbing elbows with all of Hollywood's like stars in a couple of days in LA at the Critics' Choice Awards. And there's a lot of people that buy into that and soak it up, and it becomes them. And I couldn't do that, or I couldn't do what I do. Like I wouldn't be able to do what I do. I love being here in Oklahoma, and having, like, I got my hat. I got like a hat shaped. I went to Boot Barn today, and I needed a new hat.
Future sponsor?
I needed a new hat, and because like I lost my last really good hat at the Emmys. When we presented 2 years ago, I left it on the table. And so I went to the Boot Barn today, and I got a hat. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to this award show. And he was shaping the hat for me and stuff. And I was like, I'm, going to an award show, need a new hat. And he's like, if you don't mind me asking, like, what kind of award show? I said, well, I made a show called Reservation Dogs. He's like, are you fucking kidding me? You made that show? And then he proceeded to tell me, well, I've never watched it. But like my wife's going to be really, he's like, my wife's going to be really excited and I will watch it now. So like, to me, that's Oklahoma. Like a guy making my hat going like, really nice guy, but like, I haven't watched it, but that's really cool that you came in here to get this hat shaped with me,
Yeah, right. So, for me, like, rewatching Res Dogs, looking at the reviews and everything, I think like it made clear to me that audiences, critics, are in need of, have desire for stories that have not been told, have been suppressed, overlooked. And I think for the exhibition downstairs, I think that is also reflected in the feedback that I've gotten from the exhibition, right? So there's stories being told with the artwork that perhaps a lot of people visiting have not heard before. And so I think, that points out kind of, we can make beautiful things, funny things, and that they also are important moments of learning. And so, and also I think it highlights the emphasis that community and intergenerational connection plays in your work. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about Love and Fury. And this is a documentary that you made, and it came out in 2021, I believe, right? And it's streaming on Netflix now, for those of you who haven't seen it. So it chronicles a group of Native contemporary musicians, poets, and artists, including Nathan Young and Yadika Fields, who are both in this exhibition, and others like Chinupa Hanskaluger that you do a regular kind of podcast series with, and Jeffrey Gibson. So it also includes scenes with your daughter, Portland. I don't know if that was her bedroom in Tulsa, or it was probably going off to school or something like that. And so Portland is also a poet. So what prompted you to make this film?
Micah P. Henson, actually, the musician that I follow throughout the film, who is a Chickasaw guy. And what I loved about finding out that he was Chickasaw, I actually was watching, like I hunt, we all hunt, but like, I love the show Meat Eater. It's a great show. It's about hunting, and it's like the antidote for bad hunting shows or whatever. And I posted a photo of it, and the head of the Chickasaw language department, Joshua, wrote me. Joshua Henson wrote me and said, that guy loves my brother's music. And I was like, oh, really? Like, what do you mean? He was like, well, he mentioned him on a Joe Rogan podcast at one point on this episode. So I went and listened to it. And he does mention this guy from Abilene, Texas. And I started listening to Micah P. Henson's music, and I was like, holy shit, he's so good. And you would never know that he was Native just by looking at him, right? From the way he presents himself or is presenting. And I was like, that's so rad. And like his songs aren't about being Native, like on the surface, right? And I'm always interested in that. Like, what is something different? Like, what is like going to surprise people? What is the truth? Like, what is the actual, like, because we have like, I feel like in Native art and Native culture in general, we had to like fake who we were. Like we had to wear giant turquoise bolo ties and cowboy hats and boots and or like play the flute or whatever it was to make money from white people. Like that's what we had to do. It was survival. And some of that's authentic and some of it's not, but it was a way to make money. native art that you see. There was a lot of native art that's been made that was to sell a lot of paintings in Santa Fe, and really native art sells in Santa Fe. And you know, there's other art that like that doesn't present itself necessarily as native right off on its surface, but there's conversations that are had in that art that I think is very important. And so when I saw that, I thought Micah really like represented to me that idea that like native art isn't one thing, it's everything. Like there's so many different types of native art. And so that led me to this idea of what if I just like start following all of these artists that I respect and know. And then there's this old movie that I really like in the 70s called Heart-Worn Highways, and it's about Guy Clark, Townes Van Zandt, Steve Earle, and they just followed them. And it was like before anyone knew who they were. Like Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson were famous, but these were the real ones underneath it all, and no one knew who they were. And I love that documentary. And then there was another one about Leon Russell called A Poem as a Naked Person. And they just follow him, and it's like vignettes of Oklahoma, and they follow Leon Russell. So I was like, I want to do a film like that. Like I was made like, because like if you watch a documentary now, everything's like interview, really beautiful cinematography, and like slow motion shots of B-roll, and it's beautiful. Back then, a documentary was what it is, a document. We are documenting what's happening. We're just following what's happening. We're not influencing it that much. We are just following a subject, and that's what we're filming. And so with this film, that's what I wanted to do. We're just going to follow them. We're not doing sit-down interviews. I'm just going to follow them. And I told every cameraman on the shoot, we all had Zoom cameras, and I was like, pretend you're the only camera in the room. Because when you know that another camera's in the room, you can screw the shot up and you're like, well, they got it. We can just cut to that camera and it'll be fine. But if you think your camera's the only camera in the room and something important happens, you have to be on it and you have to get it. And if someone's crying, you better hit that zoom really smoothly and get in on their face, you know? And so that's how we made the film, you know? And like, I just started following artists that I respect. I mean, like my friend Yadika back there, and like, yeah, I just saw him.
Speaking of Yadika,
He ran here from Tulsa.
We're going to put you on the spot here. We're going to play a clip
he's
now of Yadika in Love and Fury.
Right.
Bye. You too.
Oh, well, thank you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Growing up in native art, I've seen where it's come from. As a student of art myself, I've made it a point to understand it and learn about it and read about artists and yeah, I grew up in it and being around it in the galleries and seeing it and seeing the transition from the 70s to 80s native art, specifically made for majority of, I think, white clients or clients in the Southwest looking to fill that niche of Southwestern art, which kind of puts us in a box almost. And I've seen that kind of shift over the years to doing more artists thinking outside of the box, having these conversations, to personalizing the context of Native American art to contemporary reasonings today, dealing with dialogues to the political realness that we live in today, and the intersections of all these paths that we come from. I think we're finally discussing this, and so there's more work being made about it, about our identity and the differences of it, whereas back in the day it really wasn't discussed. And I think just because there's more social media involved and stuff where people are getting to talk to one another quicker, I think that's definitely the point of contact right there, the transition of difference. So really the sky's the limit anymore. I think anyone that still tries to paint in a way for a market to fill that Southwestern void doesn't do anything for me. You know, I mean, it exists for sure because people need to make money. I understand that. Families need to eat, but then that goes back to your personal preference. You know, I'm not gonna dog on them because they need to eat. They want to feel it. If they got the talent to do it, then go for it. But then there's different reasonings why you want to make art. Do you want to make art to just survive and eat and be comfortable? Or do you want to make art to really shake things up and be progressive? You know? What's your legacy on it? We don't live long. You don't know when you're gonna die, you know? I mean, so what kind of story do you want to tell? And that just kind of depends on how you were raised and how important is it to you, you know? The native identity, but that doesn't mean you have to paint native things or make native artwork or have it, you know? It's instilled in you.
So like, I think even like with Res Dogs, we're talking about like, all of it represents me, my life. There's so much of it's my life, but even like this film does too. I was just putting together artists that like, I love their work. I love how they think. And it was like telling you something about me through them. And it was like, I can put them together and they can say more than what I could say about me, I guess. You know, it was kind of the point of Love and Fury, which I want to do a part 2. So any rich ones out there that want to fund a part 2 to this film, let me know.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of like in my kind of notes, I said, you know what I really love about the documentary is that like you're both the documentarian and the subject.
Right.
And I think it's like, you know, documenting a critical moment. There's been other critical moments, but I think like, you know, capturing this shift and like the conversations around what is like native art and what can happen and the market and, you know, there's all kinds of things happening, right? So that, yeah, but what I got from it was, and the style you were talking about that you were, you know, following is this kind of like limitlessness. It's like kind of a punk rock kind of style
Very
of
punk
documentary.
rock, yeah.
And so like just like not being bound by rules of like, you know, the art world or the music world or whatever, that there's kind of this like cross-pollination of like styles and genres and everything like that. So I guess, you know, has there been a tangible shift for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think like, I definitely know that things have all changed since Reservation Dogs. But that's the thing that we can kind of grab a hold of and say, that here's a change, you know? But it was happening before that, and it was happening with these artists that I was following. And it inspired what I did with Reservation Dogs, making this film. But also it was just conversations that I was hearing and seeing for years, you know? I mean, since I was like 23, which I'm 44, 3, I don't remember I seriously don't remember how old I am. I just had a birthday, but like, I think 44. And I've been in panels since I was 23 years old, discussions, like closed room discussions with people that are like, you know, way more important than me. And I was in those conversations talking about how do we do this? Like, how do we change things? How do we make films that like cross over into popular culture? And I was always like, just tear it apart. Like, we have to dismantle it all, you know? Like, I was the kind of young punk rock kid coming in going like, we have to shake it all up. Like, we can't keep doing what we've all been doing for all of these years, you know? And I think that's why Reservation Dogs opens with the song Iggy and the Stooges, I Want to Be Your Dog, you know? Like, could you imagine the show if it would have opened with flute music? Like, you know, like, it wouldn't have been that show.
Andre
you know?
3000 now.
Right, or unless it was Andre 3000. But like opening with Iggy and the Stooges was like, oh, like everything you thought we're gonna do, like we're not gonna do any of that. And, you know, I think artists are always ahead. Institutions come way later. And I think that, I don't know, you know? And then there's money involved. One thing that I'm thankful for is FX. I didn't get my money from any native institution. I didn't get my money from Oklahoma, thank God, because I wouldn't have been able to do what I did. Like, if my money did not come from Hollywood and them going, we don't know what you're doing, and we don't know anything that you're talking about, but we believe in you, so do it. It wouldn't have been made.
No one meddling.
If I would have had to give the scripts to Reservation Dogs to a conglomerate of Native thinkers in this state. I mean, imagine what they would have killed, you know? Like, you can't say that, you can't say that, you can't say that. And luckily I had Native writers that were willing to like go to battle with me. It was like, we're gonna do everything that we're not supposed to do, you know? First and foremost, talking about suicide. Like, we're not supposed to talk about it, you know? Like, we're not supposed to, it's like, it's taboo at this point in our communities. But like, there's this really great line that Tommy Orange has in his book, They're There, which is something else that was happening at the same time as Res Dogs, you know, it happened right before. But there's a line, I think, and I'll butcher the hell out of it, but it's like, it's something about like, you know, I can't remember, but it's a great quote. It's a great quote, and it's about a house being on fire and jumping out. And it's basically, but like the point of it is, sorry, Tommy, I'm interviewing him like in a month, but the point of it is, you know, like not talking about this stuff, like we're not addressing the real issues at the heart of all of this, you know. We are spending all of this money on like, sort of anti-suicide campaigns and wellness campaigns, you know, but like the kids that are dealing with it, their friend just died, you know, like how do they feel? Like they don't care about your pamphlet. Like what happened to them? Like how do they feel emotionally? And so Reservation Dogs was about that. It's about how these kids and this community feels emotionally when something like that happens, you know?
Yeah. So like going back a little bit to the importance of kind of like reclaiming narratives and stories, let's talk about politics now. So much of the work in the exhibition is kind of like looking at these like narratives.
This is where I get canceled.
No, come on. And so Yadika's work upstairs, for instance, is like looking at this very head on with the history of Route 66, right? Which I think is really like straightforward, very much about stories that have been told about Route 66. And I think it's a really important work. So I recall one of our early conversations leading up to the exhibition, and you say something that I thought about a lot, but it was regarding kind of like tourism in Oklahoma. I don't know if you remember.
I don't.
Yeah, it was, you know, essentially like if the Oklahoma Tourism Department knew what was good for them, there'd be signs everywhere. You know, there'd be street signs everywhere indicating tribal names of origin, histories and sites of interest, good or bad, and in the language of the tribe, you know, and I found that quite striking. And
that's such a like easy given thing.
I know.
Like we are Indian territory. Like that's how this place started. Like why, like, and like most of us do embrace it, native or non-native, most of us embrace it, but that is what, like it's literally right there for us. Like Governor Stitt and whoever tries to do all of these things to like, how are we gonna get people to come? Well, we need to show them that we're hardworking, whatever. Like we're native. Like that's what is special about us. Like it's been that way from the beginning, you know? And if you don't embrace that, like you're missing everything. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and I think, I think you were also there, but Yadika was talking about his work in Tulsa, and at the very end, someone from Route 66 organization stood up and essentially apologized for missteps in the narrative. And I haven't had a chance to catch up with either one of you to see what the kind of follow-up was with that, but I think that I loved being able to see kind of like where an artwork could have that kind of tangible potential, you know, shift. And I think your work also does that too, but the conversation, it creates conversations.
Right. I mean, whenever we made the Dear Lady episode this season, like when that came out, I thought everyone knew about Native boarding schools and Indian boarding schools. I just thought it was like common. Like I thought everyone knew, because we all knew, like we heard stories about it, you know, like a lot of our family went to boarding schools. And so after it came out and everyone's non-natives were writing me saying like, thank you, from all over the world, saying thank you for like teaching us this history. Like we had no idea. That kind of blew me away, you know? And I think that in this state especially, we have a great opportunity in this state. I don't know, like I think there are like native artists and artists that will very much be like, I'm gonna silo myself off, and I am a native artist, and I don't fuck with anyone that's not native. You know, I'm very much not like that. I mean, I'm Italian and German and Irish and Scott, whatever. You know, like like my whole family thinks that they're great Italian chefs and can make spaghetti good. You know, like. Because our grandpa was Italian or something like, but in this state, there's such an opportunity for growth. I mean, like the Route 66 person that spoke at the end, like people are willing to work with us. I mean, we're in this like institution right now. I guarantee you, Indian didn't start this institution, but I'm getting an award here, you know? And I feel like there's a lot of open arms and like collaborative spirit here in this state that I think that really sets us apart from everywhere. But I do think that it's also like something that I learned with Reservation Dogs is people just don't know. And if you approach them in a way to say, I know you don't know, but I'm gonna teach you this thing and tell you about this, most people are human and they're gonna be like, oh, well, thank you for letting me know. You know, whereas like if you come in saying, you don't know, fuck you, here's what I know, no one's going to listen to that, you know? You looked at me right when I said the F word. Just the only thing that got her to look up from her game.
I don't know. Let's see. I think we're getting close on time. I don't know if anyone out there. Yes-ish. But what everyone wants to know is what is coming up next. And can you stay another 30 minutes for that? No.
I think that what is happening next, I'm going to say this, even though they haven't told me for sure. I'm like on the I'm on the half-yard line right now for a TV show starring Ethan Hawke that will be shot in Tulsa. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
I can't wait to hang out with Ethan.
What?
Can't wait to hang out with Ethan.
Right, really I know. He's great. He loved Tulsa. He had a lot of fun. I haven't brought him to Oklahoma City yet, sorry. And then I have this Jim Thorpe script that I'm writing based on the book by Dave Moranis called Path Lit by Lightning. I am in development to do a spinoff in the Spider-Verse thing with a native character that's pretty cool I can't say anything about. And then there's also an animation that I have that is a show that is based on a very, very important old native film, but we're turning it into an animation and book. And then I'm doing something with Dennis Goulet, who directed the episode that I wrote about the deer lady this season, which deals with boarding schools and stuff. We're doing adaptation with FX, an adaptation of this really popular Canadian podcast called Stolen, Surviving St. Michael's, that won all these podcast awards. So we're adapting that into a limited series. And there's a New Yorker story that I might be adapting that took place in Oklahoma. I have a meeting about it, like, in a couple days, I think.
The reporting story?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Joseph Rushmore, who is one of the artists upstairs, actually did the photos for that.
Oh, cool.
article.
Awesome. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Small town paper. It's not mine yet. I don't have that one yet, but I think I do.
He's manifesting it right here, everybody.
And then I think, 2 documentaries. This is all in a year. I don't know how I'm going to do it all, but I'm going to hire a lot of people. But Jesse Ed Davis documentary, the guitar player who was from Oklahoma, and a documentary on Richard Oakes, who was the activist that sort of spearheaded the takeover of Alcatraz and died in very suspicious circumstances. So I'm doing that as well. Hey, by the way, before we go, can everyone that was in or a crew of Reservation Dogs stand up so we can recognize you, please? Right now, jump. Mom, Dad, get up. Woo!
night.
Pretty good night.
Yeah. Thank you, Sterlin.
I said a lot of good things.
Let's take a moment to
We could recognize what I said
compliment
tonight.
Sterlin and how great he did tonight.
Thank you.
All right, I think now Karina Evangelista, who's the Senior Curator of Curatorial Affairs, that's a long title, is coming up here.
So, I count myself among the little people. Pow, pow, pow. So, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Karina Evangelista, and
I don't know what just happened, by the way. I don't.
And I'm the Senior Director of Curatorial Affairs, so I'm going to be a little bit more serious.
It's a long.
So, thank you, Sterlin and Lindsay. This was really a wonderful conversation. And although Sterlin is our awardee this evening, these flowers are for Lindsay.
Yay! That's good because I was going to give them to Lindsay if I got them.
So, Lindsay, we go a decade back to when we worked together in art publishing in Manhattan, which, by the way, is native word that we think about New York City, but Manhattan. Anyway, among the collateral benefits of the pandemic was your moving back to Tulsa, and my finding myself taking this curatorial post at Oklahoma Contemporary. You were instrumental in my having brought Solowit wall drawings all the way to Manila, Philippines, a few years ago, and now instrumental in my understanding Oklahoma with more nuance and complexity. So what more fantastic way to pick up on our after office hours conversations back in New York than this opportunity to work together on this beautiful edition of ArtNow, an exhibition that provides coordinates for charting the heavens, treasuring dirt, gesturing injustice, picturing distress, beholding love and fury, and kindling hope wide open for souls to wander through. So now for the award. ArtNow shifted from being an annual exhibition to a biennial only in 2021, for which our inaugural Focus awardee was the late Bert Seabourn. He was so beloved that among the many awards he received during his lifetime was recognition as Oklahoma's living treasure. He passed away in November 2022. We take this moment to remember him, and we feel honored that his daughter, Connie Seabourn, also an artist, is able to present the award to Sterlin on his behalf. Oklahoma Contemporary is committed to supporting artistic expression in all its forms, and so Sterlin Harjo, as the Focus awardee of the current edition of ArtNow, it's a nod to the art of filmmaking. With ArtNow being a biennial survey of the creative output in Oklahoma, Sterlin's video, created specifically for ArtNow, captures another unstinting voice and living treasure of Oklahoma, U.S. Poet Laureate Joy Harjo, with whom Sterlin shares Muskogee tribal affiliation. Their artistic perspectives are shaped by lifelong reckoning with land drenched in history that warrants interrogating. Sterlin Harjo ignited the art of flickering frames of images on a screen, disrupting its discipline long ruled by Hollywood caricatures and commercialism, using Hollywood money, we learned today, using an indigenous lens and enjoining indigenous voices to tell stories that are fiercely native and fiercely contemporary. Stories that defy being buried by time and tragedy. Sterlin, as Lindsay stated earlier, you were quoted in the recently published review of ArtNow, stating that you decided to make your first foray into exhibiting in a museum setting at Oklahoma Contemporary since, quote, museums are the place where Indians go to die. Well, thank you for coming back tonight. to prove that we like to keep our contemporary artists very much alive and kicking, and in the spirit of all the language that you used tonight, kicking ass.
I just have a couple of things I wanted to say real quickly. I remember being here with my dad, with my mom and dad, year before last, and it was so wonderful. And the evening has been magnificent, and getting to know more about you and your creative process, Sterlin, has been wonderful. But I did want to say what a special privilege to be able to present or to represent my late father, Bert Seabourn, in this ceremony. I now want to present the Focus Award, the second Focus Award, to a man who has achieved great success in his own masterful creative world and all of his endeavors, and to say that I'm so proud that your work, that you represent and make Oklahoma look so good.
We're gonna do it fake.
Okay.
Bear with us.
I feel like I know what it is.
I'll let you lead.
They left the tag on.
Right.
I'm gonna return it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like I've already talked a lot, so thank you very much. Thank you so much. This is my old buddy. Such good friends. We hung out in Norman a lot, and it was beautiful. Really glad to be doing this with you today. Thank you.
Okay, I think I'm closing this thing. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's like 7:30. The bar's still open till 8 p.m. though. You don't have to go home, but you know. Can't stay here. But thank you so much. This was really wonderful. Thank you to Lindsay. Thank you to Sterlin and Karina and to Connie. This was such a beautiful evening. We really appreciate it. Oklahoma, homegrown. We're really proud. We're really proud. Thank you. Have a beautiful evening.